Well, hello ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, let me just get myself all riled up here. Okay, we're 4:15. I'm sorry I'm late, ladies and gentlemen. Still getting used to this computer stuff, but it is kind of fun figuring it all out. Now let's see. Yes, so we got viewers coming in from I was trying to get Facebook going. It looks like we're going to have to cancel Facebook for now. So we'll just take that out of there. And we shall try to get YouTube going on. Alright, so you guys must be sick of just looking at my face. I'm trying to make this... one more thing here. Whoops. Too much. Little of this and a little of that. Okay, so hopefully without further ado, we can get rocking and rolling with this show. I appreciate all patience involved, folks. Let's see here. Okay. Now, how do you do, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Dustin Cormier, and you're watching Howtorockspirit. Thank you very much for coming and being a part of this show. It's been a little while since I've done a live stream. I'm still trying to figure out all the quicks and quirks and trying to get it all together. But I do have a little bit of a thing prepared, and I think it should all work out the way I'm thinking it should. This is our Howtorockspirit, Chinese Astrology, and Tropical Vedic Astrology series. I'm going to be trying to combine these two throughout this whole series that I'm trying to get going on here. Now, I will say, as you can tell, there's a few little technicalities that I'm trying to work out. I have a feeling that this is going to be a little bit of a tryout session for me and for all of us. And hopefully, after this session, and maybe one or two more, I'm going to be a little bit more tech savvy, and I'm also going to get used to blabbering and talking live and doing this whole live stream thing. So hopefully this will be a good little starter, and who knows, this could be the one that I end up using. But you guys are going to be here for a part of what is essentially me trying to make a YouTube playlist, and we're going to be able to see through the playlist all these videos breaking down Chinese astrology and how it relates to Tropical Vedic Astrology. So it's going to get tighter and tighter from here. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to try to figure out at some point how to get comments going so that at the very end of this episode, you guys will be able to see, or you guys will be able to ask me questions, comments, concerns, whatever you guys think might be relevant to our topic today. And the topic today is mostly concerned with just sort of an intro. I think eventually at some point, this is becoming my posture. It's funny how like this chair is like my thing right now. We will learn that with this episode, we're going to be somewhat, it's like an introduction that I want to do today. So we're not going to get too much into calculating the Ba Z. But that is a concern of mine that we are going to see in basically the next episode. We're going to actually see how to calculate every part of the Ba Z, which is the Chinese astrology chart. Ba Z stands for 8 characters. And it's similar to, I believe it's Ganzi, which is 4 pillars. With that being said, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for seeing my show, being a part of my show. Let's finally get me to stop blabbering and get on with what we got going on here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tropical Chinese and Tropical Astrology mixed together. You can see that I've kind of got this wheel here. It's got the Tropical Vedic Astrology, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and then the inside has the Chinese Astrology. And that's what we're trying to do with this course. And what I'm going to try to do at first is explain, essentially, my shtick is the Vedic astrology thing. So, I've been doing Tropical Vedic astrology. I consider myself as part of the Ryan Kirkzak, Vic DeCara, Ernst Wilhelm, that sort of crew, who is doing Vedic, like Neo-Vedic astrology. It's still Vedic astrology going by the Vedic style, but put with the tropical measurements and coordinates of the planets in the sky. I want to relate how Chinese astrology basically relates to this. But I should say that this tropical astrology thing, although when I'm talking about Western astrology, I'm going to be talking through the consciousness of Tropical Vedic, I should like to say that no matter what your measurement style is, whether it's regular Western, whether it's sidereal, or whether it's neo-tropical astrology, Chinese astrology will fit into, it's a different system. And that's part of what I'm going to try to talk about today, is that Chinese astrology and tropical astrology they're two really different systems. They encompass two different functions in our energy field. They're two different dimensions of our energy field. And I would say, as we're going to learn, that the Chinese astrology sort of centers or fits or belongs more in the realm of the nervous system, of the body, of the physical body. The nervous system's a funny thing because it's connected in a way between the ego, the rational mind, and the world that we're feeling. Over time, the impressions that we make on our nervous system will lead us to either a positive feeling of resolve and peace in the self, or if you're not paying attention to how your nervous system is constantly getting rattled by whatever it is in life that's causing some strain on your nervous system, your nervous system's going to feel it too, and it's going to be affected by those motions. And I contend that while much of that tension can be observed through the mechanics of astrology, Western astrology, and Vedic astrology, I assert that there's a huge dimension of our energy field, of our nervous system, of the motions of our relationship with reality that is shown and contained in Chinese astrology, which for whatever reason the West has skipped over or just not realized, not seen. We're going to talk about why that is, why it might be. Anyway, we're going to get into a lot of fun stuff like that. I really want this video, this intro, to be showing like the history of Chinese astrology, the history of its conception, why it came out to be the way it is through history. And I'm going to make a big point of showing how Ernst Wilhelm, for some reason I gotta burn. I was right. So Ernst Wilhelm is a fellow. You might know Ernst, the fellow who wrote this book, Graha Sutras. I highly recommend it for anybody who's into anything astrology. It's gonna lead you to like the end point. It's very good. So this is like a tropical astrology deal, not so much Chinese astrology. The reason I'm bringing that book up is because Ernst talks in the Graha Sutras book about a cool idea, which is that each race on the planet can embodies a planet, a planetary archetype. And he contends that, you know, like the sort of Celtic-y, white European vibe has like a moon, is centered on lunar moon consciousness. And he talks about how the Chinese are ruled, China, or not just Chinese, but Asiatic traditions of a certain flavor. It's hard to say which is exactly which. He's very careful about talking about that thing because it's combining astrology with race. It's kind of a dangerous place to go. I mean, in today's time, we're all mutts anyway. We're all so many combinations of so many different things. But it is useful for me to say, or to quantize the idea, that Chinese astrology connects with the idea of Mercury. Because the yellow people, the Asiatic people, are described as being ruled by Mercury in Ernst Wilhelm's Graha Sutras book. So the Chinese people are very Mercury, whereas they say, actually, that the Indian people are particularly, according to Ernst, ruled by the sun, the reddish-brown hued skinned people. And so the soul, the things that relate to the soul, the Atma, the internal perceiver. Gosh, there's lots of things that talk about the sun and the soul and what it means. But essentially, the sun is reflected in the Indian people. And Mercury is reflected in the way of the Chinese people. And so I'm going to try to show that Chinese astrology relates to the nervous system and relates to how while the sun is the internal soul thing, the fool's journey of Western astrology and Vedic astrology as well, it's the fool's journey. It's a continual linear soul progression within that is kind of continuing life after life after life and towards a spiritual ascension, towards a ascension that is probably the most central thing to the purpose of every person that gets born and that incarnates. Chinese astrology is talking about something in our energy field that is more in the body. It's more in the nervous system, like I said, and has more to do with a feeling, a sensual appreciation. It's a very materialistic heart center. And I'm going to talk about Western astrology versus Chinese astrology in a similar sort of way, in the sense that, I mean, mind you, there's karmas in the Chinese astrology. And there are good karmas and bad karmas. They call it more luck. They consider it more about luck than anything. Part of what I'm going to do with this video is to describe the differences between these two philosophical outlooks. Where somebody who might be a very Western astrology person, or someone who might be really enamored by Western, Tropical Vedic astrology, it's the sun thing, which means you could read a Western chart and it will generally tell you mostly about the sun, which is like, what do you got to do? What did you do last incarnation? What's the purpose of the whole thing? Now, someone who only reads a Western chart, Western tropical sun sign chart, ascendant and all, the whole deal. Like, it's really the whole thing is in there. But there will be dimensions of one's feeling in everyday, their luck, their everyday luck, their connections with people, their relationships, their love luck. These are all things that are not included in Western. They are, in their own way, they're included in Western astrology. This is what's confusing, that we've got to ultimately just talk about and deal with this confusion. And that's what I'm trying to do here. When I advocate Chinese astrology to tropical astrologers, I usually hear from the tropical people, from the Western people, so which is more important? And I have to say, I think that the sun thing, which is the Indian thing, which is for me is the true roots of all astrology, comes from the Indian, Hindu sort of thing. I would say tropical astrology is more telling of the ultimate purpose of the soul of the person, in my opinion, coming from someone who's a tropical Vedic astrologer. And then they say, oh, okay, well, good to know. I'm already doing that, so, you know, that I'm just going to keep rock and rolling what I'm doing. And then I say, well, okay, so that's cool, but you're missing some things. The Chinese astrology has some critical dynamics that can really help your soul purpose. In the same way that, you know, if someone's like got an ox cart, you know, the sun is the charioteer of the cart. And he's whipping the ox because the Western astrologer says, forget my comfort, forget my senses. I want to ascend in my soul, so I'm just going to forget what I want and what my heart wants. I mean, the tropical astrology doesn't do that. My point is that you might be whipping your ox, and your ox, the cart, your body, your nervous system might be telling you, like, I don't know if you realize, but like, my neck, you know, my leg's kind of buckling a little bit, and you know, you're pushing me harder than is ultimately best. You know, the Western astrologer is just, well, it doesn't matter. I gotta whip this ox and I gotta ascend. And the Chinese, when you combine both, if you take care of the ox and the nervous system and the body and the heart through this hidden dimension that the West has somehow missed, the ox is going to feel it. Your body's going to know that you're trying to get in connection with it, and you're trying to have yoga with your body and your nervous system. Your body will appreciate it, and your heart will appreciate it, and everything related to Chinese astrology will have awareness. This is a hidden dimension of our awareness that we're missing out on. Now, all the other planetary races that Ernst Wilhelm talks about in Graha Sutras, they all have different things to add. In fact, he mentions that the red people of North America have like a spiritual, you know, they have the eagle thing. I went out and went on a visionary quest and I saw an eagle. And they're ruled by Mars, the red, it's a red planet vibe. So the eagle is like a spiritual archetype that they try to go for. It's not an astrology, but it's still something useful for healing. So I don't want people to think that Chinese astrology and Vedic astrology are all that's there spiritually, but it seems to me like they would cater to the two main things, which is the sun and the nervous system. The nervous system being the messenger of God, which is the Atma and the self, the soul, the spirit that is trying to express itself. I think these are the two most critical ones, and that's why I'm glad that I'm capitalizing on them. And I think, anyway, this a long way of saying that astrology, Chinese astrology, is a big part of self-healing. Now, before I blabber on too much, let's see if we can't start talking about, in a grounded way, in my own idea of my grounded way. I've got a few little slides and stuff in here, and then we're going to really start rolling with my presentation that we have. So, here we have, kind of lost myself a bit there. We all good? We're still alive? All right. We've already lost my computer once already today. I think we're good. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the fucking 10,000th time, this is my Chinese tropical astrology videos. An introduction to Chinese astrology in particular. Now, as you can see here, this is what I've created to be Dustin Cormier's Chinese astrology chart. Don't worry, I'm not going to be showing you, we're not going to break this down today, although we're going to break a little bit of it down. What I'm trying to infer with this little next part of this presentation, I'm trying to show that there's more to Chinese astrology than just your year sign. We can see here that this is the year I was born, the year of the metal goat. That's 1991. Now, a lot of people think when you go to a Chinese restaurant and you look on the cute little thing and your menu, and it shows you what year you're born. If you're born in 1991, that means you're in the year of the goat, and the goat will tell you certain little things about your personality. And it's true to a certain degree. I've been, trying to study Chinese astrology for a while, at least a few years now. And I've always thought the same thing. I thought the year sign was the big thing, because that's the big thing that everyone talks about in the books. Excuse me. Anytime that you read a Chinese astrology text that was translated from the English, if it's just Chinese astrology and not Bazi, then it's probably going to have this sort of... It's like reading about your sun sign, When you look for a book that's just all about your sun sign, okay? You look at it, and it's just like a whole, a 10-page little write-up about the sun in Scorpio, for example. Anyone who's really into astrology knows that there's way more to the chart and to the personality than just those archetypes described by the sun in Scorpio. In the same way, there's so much more to the Chinese astrology chart than just the year that you're born. In fact, what I'm going to try to show, just through a little bit, that there are 3 points in particular that are way more important than this year sign. We're going to see that there's 3 points in particular, and we're going to talk about them a bit. One is the month branch, right? So the branch is the sign, and then the stem is what's called the heavenly stem. These are all dynamics that we're going to talk a little bit about as we come further on. The 3 most important points are the month branch, the day branch, and the day stem. The day stem is actually the most important. Now, all this other stuff is basically like other planets. You could say the sun and the moon and the ascendant are kind of like these 3. They're sort of like I don't want to generalize too much, but the ascendant, the sun, and the moon are very much, for everybody, important parts of the self. And they're also the basic points that you deal with in relationship astrology. All these other points, the year sign, the hour sign, the stems of these different points, and then these 2 extra things on the bottom here, Taiwan and Mingong, these are all points that are like attributes of the main 3, and they support or detract from the agenda of these main 3. We also have Shen Sha here. I'm just circling this big chunk here, and these are kind of like yogas. You'll notice that tropical astrology, well, Vedic astrology, I should say, has things called yogas. So let's say in a Western astrology chart, you have the 1st Lord and the 5th Lord are conjunct together. when you have the first lord, which is a Kona lord, and also a Kona and a Kendra, the first one is both, and then the fifth house is also a Kona. So when you've got a Kendra and a Kona lord together, particularly, no matter what the ascendant, when you bring those two together in the same sign, you get what's called Raja Yoga. And it means something special. So, for example, if you have the Sun and Mars in Scorpio, and you have the fourth lord, Scorpio, is with, say, I don't know, okay, so like I'm a Leo rising, and my first lord is with my fourth lord in the fourth house. That's what's called a Raja Yoga, and it's a particular combination that means something. This is a similar sort of thing with what's called Shen Sha, right? So if you have your Feng Gong, you can see I've got these things circled here. Feng Gong means challenges, lessons of spiritual detachment. And for me, the particular Feng Gong that was chosen was the boar. So if I have the boar anywhere in my personal chart, especially within my 3 main points, then there will be a particular, it's like a yoga. It's like a Chinese astrology yoga, and it means something special for that sign. Now, we're going to talk about that probably more when we get into the next video in this series, which is going to be calculating the Ba Zi, where we actually talk about these different things. For now, I'm just showing you all this stuff just so you can kind of see that there's more to the chart than just your year sign, right? In fact, there's a little bit of a hierarchy involved. I guess I don't have it in here. But the 3 ways of describing the self, it starts with the day stem, and that's this. So right here. I was born on the day of the water horse. The yang water sign is a huge description of everything that I am. It's very much a big part of my personality. It's a personality that I love to be naturally, but it's also something that helps me. It's my natural way of dealing with other people in business and in relationships. You'll find that Chinese astrology is particularly interested in relationships because, again, it's less about the sun, which is more about your internal soul thing that you're doing. This is telling you more data about how your nervous system naturally interacts with the nervous systems of other people. This gives me a good timing to say, for example, when you're working out like a relationship with somebody, you're going to be looking in one way, depending on what you're looking for in a relationship. If you're the type of soul in Vedic astrology that's just trying to get its own thing done, and the relationship is less important than what you do on top of it, you know, some people live for the relationship. Some people are just more about their own soul, but, you know, they get a partner who might also be more about their own soul and their own internal progression. And that's kind of ideal, really. You want to find a relationship that blends in the Western astrology sphere first, more importantly than anything. On top of that, we have the dynamics of Chinese astrology. So you could have a partner who works well with you and lives the right life in the same life that you're trying to live in a Western astrology sense. But they could really be abrasive to your day stem. They might drain your day stem because their nervous system's nature is more like Earth, for example. You know, if I'm with somebody whose day stem is Yang Earth, that means that I'm dealing with somebody who is, I don't know, you will see that we've got this star here, the pentagram, and you'll see eventually we'll talk about how the 5 elements interact with each other. But you could see if I was with somebody who was Yang Earth, that might obstruct their nervous system nature. Even though we're doing the same thing in the Western astrology sense, You know, our souls are ascending to the same spiritual aspiration in a sort of way. The content is aimed at the same direction. You know, we could both be artists and we both want to express our art, right? But when we get together, even though we have the same sort of agendas, even if we have the same, flowing Venus, flowing, we both have Venuses that work well together. That means generally we're not going to get on our nerves. And even if we have, in this example of Chinese astrology, even if I have a Yang Water day stem and they have a Yang Earth day stem or a Yang Earth day branch, which would also be a bit abrasive, even though that would be there in our nervous systems, the Venuses would say, okay, so this person's nervous system is used to doing this thing. I have to hold the space in order to keep the love with them, right? So the Western astrology thing, the Venuses, like that kind of thing is really ultimately more important than the Chinese astrology, but how much more romantically easy and flowing in the materialistic sense, in the nervous system bodily sense, will the emotional flow be between those two people if the Western chart looked good and the Chinese chart also were conducive to an energetic cheek dance that was circulating and would keep each other's interests organically towards excitement and interest, You could say you love your lover because, of course, we are in the same spiritual aspirations. We're doing the same things. We want the same things. We want kids together and all these things. We're destined to be together. And you can love the lover for that reason. But there's another dimension to it, which is like waking up in the morning, closing your eyes, and just being attracted to the person at a nervous system level. It's a very materialistic sense of relationship building that goes on in Chinese astrology. And just like in astrology, if you're with somebody who doesn't flow in a chi way, you'll still be able to get a lot of love out of the person. Or in a business relationship. If someone doesn't flow with you in astrology, you can still roll with it and make it work. But there will be power that comes from the passion, that comes from an organic feeling of sensual excitement when the chi flows are all flowing together in their organic, natural way. So we're going to be talking about more of this. But for now, again, it is important to say that these 3 points, I don't think I need to talk about them too much right now. In our next episode, we'll be talking more about calculating the Ba Zi, the Chinese chart, and seeing how they all flow together. But in any case, this for now will show us that the day stem is your actual self. They've got a bit of there's a hierarchy involved here, where the day stem is the emperor, right? The water horse, the water of the water horse, is my emperor. It's my main thing that I'm trying to do with my chart. The month branch, the boar, is the commander. And it's a huge dimension of your personality. This is kind of like how you go about doing what the day stem wants to do. So I've got Ren, which is Yang Water day stem, and boar is also considered Ren, which is like Yang Water as well. You'll see why it's called Yang, even though most people will call the boar Yin. That's something we've got to talk about today as well. The physical body versus the energetic body of the Taoist sign. You can see here that I've got Yang Water as my day stem, myself, and I've got also Yang Water, the boar is Yang Water, as my month branch, my commander. So it's a lot of Yang Water. And then my day branch, the sort of third in this hierarchy, we can see day stem is self or emperor, month branch is commander, and the day branch is the partner, quote unquote. And the partner relates to the concept that the day branch is very much something that you interact with the world through. You could say the day stem is sort of you, what you want to do. The commander is how you express what you want to do and how you ground and command what the emperor wants. And the partner is how you deal with other people in order to keep the self, the emperor, and the commander flowing and going properly. And the day branch says a lot about romance and things like that. The day branch is kind of like the 7th house, where the day stem is sort of like the 1st house. You can almost do like, you can almost say that the day stem is like the sun, the month branch is like the ascendant, and the day branch is kind of like the moon. I guess you wouldn't really say that because the moon doesn't necessarily connect with the 7th. Just giving you guys some food for thought. And this is the last little part of this little pre-talk, is that we can see my emperor, my self, which is Ren, that's my day stem, is up here at the water. Also, my commander, my month branch, is the same place. It's water. The boar is a water sign. So both of these are completely watery. They are controlling, I'm sure many of you have seen the 5-pointed star with the 5 elements: water, wood, fire, earth, metal. These elements work in the same way the Panchatattvas do, a la Ernst Wilhelm, which is something we'll be talking about eventually. How it works is that water skips wood and controls fire. So that means that my emperor and my commander, myself, and the way I deal with everything really puts a lot of strain on the people that I'm supposed to be communicating with. There's a lot of times, like, you know, where like I got a million things going on in my life right now. I've got a band. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't really have time for it. Wonder why. You know, there are plenty of things that I tend to tell people. I love to hang out with people. I love to just go out and spread my fingers out and hang out with people. But a lot of the times, I am very, in a yang way, concentrated on what myself and what my whole energy field, I want to concenter it, and I use my connections with other people. Those connections with other people are almost like in service of myself and my commander, because water is controlling the fire. It is actually a good flow. You want the emperor. The best thing is when the emperor like controls the commander and the partner supports those two. So anyway, so that's an interesting thing that goes to show that you really can't just read about your month branch and think that you know everything about your Chinese astrology chart. You really can't read your day stem and know everything about what's going on there. For example, my day stem and commander are so yang water that it's a bit too much, actually. It's a little bit too, let's see, like, you know, flowing, soft, nourishing, easygoing, and then in the negative, fearful, overwhelmed, and devastated. That happens to me quite a bit, just because, you know, I'm a soft guy. I don't like to really push people around too much. And I can get very overwhelmed and just sort of just like, blah, I got too much energy just going in a million places at once that I can't hold it down. So, someone like me could say, oh, so the day stem is the most important part of my chart. So how should I be exactly? Oh, I should be flowing, soft, smart, nourishing, easygoing. That's myself, my emperor. So of course that's an important thing for me to emulate. And it is true, right? To a certain extent. I've got so much water going on that if all I read about was, the fact that I'm in the month of the boar, oh, so I should be Mr. Soft, nice guy all the time, and I should have water flowing all the time because that's my nature. Well, that is part of the reason why I've got too much water in my chart. So it's important for anybody getting into any astrology to know the context of anything that you idolize or identify with. I'm a Scorpio sun, and it is important for me to understand that those parts of myself, which are naturally the Scorpio sun, are important. But, when I first got into astrology, I heard that Scorpio is this cool, mysterious, strong, fixed sign who should, who's like this killer guy who's like hard and who will go through something if someone is gonna mess with them, right? So when I first got into this astrology stuff, I thought, oh, I'm a Scorpio, strong-armed guy. That means that I should just punch my way through life and be sexy and just draw sex to myself. These are all the kind of things that happen to people who read one small piece of the chart and then think, that's the answer to what I've been trying to be, and the world won't let me be it. Because it has to be in balance. Of course, the qualities of Scorpio sun are important to me. But if that's all I was, that would be a very shallow personality. And it might not always be useful. There are times when I have to just calm the Scorpio thing down because I've got another dimension of my life that has nothing to do with my sun. My sun's in the 4th house, So the Scorpio thing in the 4th house is me trying to hold down my home, my own internal happiness. But if I go through like a Saturn dasha, Saturn is in my 7th house. The 4th house sun might not be the most important thing for me right now. I should perhaps let it go and be more of a 7th house thing and learn to deal with that. So in the same way with this kind of thing, I think you guys see what I mean, You can't just read about your animal sign and think that's what I gotta be all the time. It's more about like, this is what your nervous system wants to be. So you learn about the nervous system that other people want to be, and you find out how much of yourself is okay with that person. And when they flash back or they say, whoa, there's too much yang water here, you say, okay, I've got to draw myself back, but not to the point where I still can't be confidently myself in this situation. It's all part of the fun of astrology, and it's all part of the fun of self-realization and the realization of the nature in others and finding out how to harmonize those in a way that makes for a peace in the present moment and for moments to come. So one of my favorite words that are a buzzword in our astrological community is confluence. As we can see, confluence is when different elements of a chart combine together and say the same thing. There's a confluence of too much water in my chart. And so, that's something that I have to watch for. And I can't be one-dimensional about it and just say, I've got to be water because water is in my chart. Okay. Now, all right, we're still good. Can everybody still see me? You can see that nice giant pimple on my forehead that just won't go away. Very good. Oh, HD cameras, Thank God for those, right? Okay. Now, I would love to get my YouTube chat going here so I could see if there's ever any questions. Unfortunately, For whatever reason, I cannot figure that out right now. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because I know that if I spend too much time on anything, I'll lose the train of thought that we're trying to get going for this video. Oh, forget it. Dang. It's okay. I'm going to work on a way to make sure that next time I come on here, or anytime I come on here, I'll be able to see you guys. And, oh, and your comments. That's what I'm interested in right now. What I'm trying to do right now is trying to get on YouTube so that I can see any comments that you guys are trying to give me. Let's see here. What I'm trying to do right now. Oh, wow, we're live. Oh, my God. Cool. Oh, nice. Cool. Okay, so okay. So, okay. Thank you for your patience, folks. So I can see you guys on here. I think that what I'm going to do is every now and then, I'm going to go on YouTube. I used to have it so that you could see the YouTube thing on here, but I can't work that out right now. It's been hard to get this whole thing going, but we'll get better and better at it as time goes on, ladies and gentlemen. So for now, it's nice to see that I can see your guys' comments. So, for now, we're going to continue with our lesson, and at some point, feel free to throw out any comments that you like right now, and as we go along, I'm going to see if I can answer them, although what I'm considering more than anything is just getting through the lesson right now, and then maybe we'll save our questions for a little bit after. Okay, so it's 5 o'clock now. We're already an hour in, but that's because we started a little bit late, and I blabbered for a little while. So, let's start off with a little bit of a history lesson of Chinese astrology. I've got quite a bit to go through here, and I'm already an hour in, and I'm only just getting started, so I'm learning the nature of how much I can blabber on these videos to how much information I want to get out and go through. This video might end up being like 3 or 4 hours. I'm having fun, so if you guys are here and enjoying it with me, we're going to get through it. We're going to do it. Hopefully, what I'm going to eventually do is condense these videos into something that's condensed. Something that's sharp. But for now, we're going to do a little bit of reading here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this little bit comes from this book here. It's like looking at a mirror. Yeah. So this book is called Tiangan DZ, which basically means the heavenly stems and earthly branches. Tian is heaven, D is earth, Gan is stems, and Z is branches, right? So the heavenly stems is the name before the animal. For example, I was born in the month of the Earth boar. Earth is the stem. It's like the stem of a tree. You get the stem, and then the branch branches from the stem. I am the earth boar of the 5 different types of boars, because there's 5 elements. Anyway, so that's what this book is all about. It's a really good grounding primer for the symbols of Chinese astrology, for basically everything Chinese astrology. It talks about the stems and breaks each one down, like, you know, yin wood, yin fire, yang fire. It breaks each of those down and shows you how they mix in with the branches, which is the 12 Taoist animals that everybody knows from Chinese astrology. So we're going to do a little bit of history here, folks, because I really want to make these lessons grounded in a legitimate historical framework and as well as an astronomical framework. We're going to talk about where the signs come from in the stars from a sidereal zodiac that relates similarly to this debate of tropical versus sidereal that is going on in the astrology world right now. Similar thing going on in the Chinese, although, well, I guess it's not much of a debate going on. It seems the Chinese naturally glued into the tropical thing. We'll get there. We'll get there. For now, let's start with a little bit of history from a man, Master Zhongzheng Wu, and his wife and partner in life, Dr. Karen Taylor Wu. Master Zhongzheng Wu is a really great professional Chinese medicine theorist and practitioner. And he's the one that's getting all this down. If anybody, he's kind of like our... I'm having a brain fart right now. Parashara. He's kind of like our Parashara in a sort of way. He's a modern sage who's decrypting the ancient Chinese symbols in a way that's in English. And his wife, Dr. Karen Taylor Wu, is a huge part of this process as well. Because so far as I'm concerned, hardly anybody is putting this stuff out into English. These folks seem to be really doing it. So this is going to be a little bit of formalities in terms of describing my lineage. It's always important to show the lineage of any spirituality that you're trying to talk about. This book, at the very beginning of it, contains blessings from Taoist Grandmaster Ren Fa Rong. So Grandmaster Ren Fa Rong is the former abbot of Lu Guantai. And that's where Lao Tzu wrote his Tao Te Ching. He's China's leading scholar of the Tao Te Ching, the I Ching, and Taoist internal alchemy practices, and has published numerous books in this field. He currently serves as the president of the Chinese Taoist Association. So this is the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's important. I think it's important to know that so far as I understand, the general populace of China, if this Chinese Taoist Association is socially accepted to be the legitimate lineage of the Chinese medicine arts, this Grandmaster has blessed the lineage that is being purported by Master Zhongzheng Wu. And I think it's important to show that this isn't just... Master Zhongzheng Wu is not just some guy who's really excited about this stuff, but who has no lineage to show it himself. He's attached to this Chinese Taoist Association. And Ren Fa Rong, the Taoist Grandmaster, says, "Blessings to the couple Wu Zongxian and Wu Xiaoling for their extraordinary work, Heavenly Stems and Earthly Branches, the Heart of Chinese Wisdom Traditions." It's this book. This book offers an unprecedented contribution to Taoism, the I Ching, traditional medicine, internal alchemy, and Qigong practice to the English-speaking world. And then he has a cool little poetic thing here. "The heavenly way circles with one qi, showing the truth of the Tao. Stems rule the 5 elements, the hidden way of enlightenment. The earthly way secures the Trinity, storing the mystical trigger. Branches symbolize 10,000 things and reveal the keys to the sublime." That was his little blessing for Zhongzheng Wu, who is the author of the lineage that we're about to be describing, which is, in my understanding, the first English-speaking presentation of the true lineage of Chinese astrology as a Taoist art. And here's a picture of the three of them. Check it out. Yeah, that's Grandmaster Fa Rong. On the right is our master, our Master Zhongzheng Wu, and his wife, Karen Taylor Wu, on the left. Word master is not something we want to say. You're our master, unless you're in the personal thing of theirs, which is a guru thing, but I think for our purposes, it's better just to say Master Zhongzheng Wu. Anyway, gonna get better with this word stuff pretty soon, as long as I practice doing what we're doing right now. Okay, so now we're gonna fast forward to page 19 of this book. We don't need to go through the whole gosh darn thing. And we're gonna talk about the origins of Ganzi. And it comes from, we can see that there's like, this is like either a tortoise shell or some piece of like a tree bark, which has inscriptions of the Chinese characters on it. Ganzi, as I said, well actually I guess I didn't say. We can see that this book is called Tiangan Di. Ganzi just basically means stems and branches. So the archetypes of the 10 heavenly stems, which is the 5 elements in yin and yang form, right? Yin wood, yin fire, yin earth, yang earth. Blah. It's yang first, actually. Yang earth, yang metal, yin metal, yang water, yin water. There's 10 of them. I duffed that, but whatever. Whatever. And then there's 12 branches. 10 and 12. So Ganzi, as I said, means stems and branches. And this is a little bit of an origin story of the stems and branches. As he mentions in his book, The Vital Breath of the Tao, Zhongzheng Wu says that archaeological evidence indicates that possible precursors to Chinese characters appeared 8,000 years ago. Now that's going way back there, not even in the period that we're going to be looking at. Unearthed inscriptions found on scapulae and tortoise shells verify that a complete system of Chinese written language was in use already during the Shang dynasty. So this is 1700 to 1000 BCE. Much sooner, or much later than 8,000 years ago. That 8,000 was just a number to say that there was Chinese writings of some sort back then. This is suggesting that a complete systematized system of Chinese written language was in use about 1700 is when they really started to ground it. The inscriptions were related to the divination practices of the emperors and the distinctive style of character used in them, which is called oracle script, which we'll talk about a little bit, just for the sake of it. The earliest known written record of the stems and branches exists in these oracle bones. Through archaeological evidence, we can confirm that the stems and branches, this system, the stems and branches system, has been in use in Chinese imperial calendars and divination systems since at least that era, the Shang dynasty. So that's like 1700 BCE-ish, like we said. Now, we're going to get a little bit more interesting here. As yet, no one has been able to definitively ascertain who invented the heavenly stems and earthly branches, the 10 and the 12. Where did it come from? It's an interesting question that even, you can even think of astrology. Who invented the 12 signs of astrology? It's not about inventing so much as discovering, right? It was already in the ether. It just took man a little while to write it down. Same thing with the system of Chinese astrology. And as it says, it is commonly held that the stems and branches existed long before the invention of the Chinese characters that describe them. This is an important point. The characters that we use to describe these archetypes are codified in language, and the language says something about it. One version of the story of the history of the discovery of these Chinese stems and branches, it relates that heaven released the 10 stems on Yuan Chui, Rotund Hill, during the time of Huang Di, the Yellow Emperor, who is traditionally believed to have lived 2700 to 2600 BCE. In order to, so this is obviously, that was the 2600 is 1,000 years before China really started to get a language that they would use for a while. Around 1700, that Shang dynasty was, they got to a place where they were really good, and they were starting to centralize a system of written language. Now, 2700 BCE, this is when the shamans were still feeling the flow of these energies, the stems and the branches in their own bodies as well as in the natural cycles of the calendar. But they didn't have words for what they were experiencing. So, around 2700 BCE, in order to understand the way of heaven and follow the rhythm of nature, the Yellow Emperor instructed his minister, Da Rao, to create 12 complementary branches to complete the Jia-zi. The Jia-zi is the Chinese calendar named after Jia, the first stem, and Zi, the first branch, the rat. So that calendar, the Jia-zi, is made up solely of these stems and branches. So Jia is wood, and the rat is wood is the first of the heaven stems. The rat is the first of the earthly branches. So the wood rat is always the first of the 60-year cycle, right? If you know how it rolls, since that there are only 10 heaven stems, if you start on wood rat and you go to the next rat, you will have progressed through the 10 heavenly stems, and by the time you get to the 10th branch, you will restart on wood again. So let's say 1984 was the year of the wood rat. 12 years later is 1996. That's 12 years later, and 12 heaven stems signs later. So my point is that 1984 was the wood rat. 1996 was the fire rat. I wonder if maybe I should just if you see what I mean there. 84, let's go by the heaven stems. 84 is yang wood. 85 is yin wood. 86 is yang fire. 87 is yang fire. 88 is yin earth. 89, yang earth. 88 is yang earth. 89 is yin earth. 90 is metal, yang metal. 91 is yin metal. 92 is yang water. 93 is yin water. Yeah. And then 95 comes back to wood again. Sorry, 94. 94 comes back to wood again. So we can see that the decades actually follow the heavenly stems. 84 is yang wood. 94 is also yang wood. 85 is yin wood. 95 is also yin wood, right? So we can go on like this. So we could see that 96, following that in the heavenly stems, 96 is yang fire. But it's 12 years from 1984, which means that 1996 is the year of the fire rat. 12 years from there, from 96 to 2008, 2008 is the year of the earth rat. Right? So do you see what's going on here? The 12 signs are like going slower than the 10 stems. 984 is wood rat. 96, fire rat. 2008, earth rat. Wood goes into fire, goes into earth. And then we'll see in the year 2000, it will be the year of the metal rat. So that's their calendar that they started figuring out around this time. Hopefully that just didn't take too long, but for those who might be interested in how the Chinese calendar works, we got a little bit of ground on that. Okay, now we're going to continue on. I'm just going to take a quick peek to see if anybody has any critical questions. Cool. Hippie history hour. Guitar warrior. Okay, so we don't have any questions relating too heavily to our present historical conversation, so let's keep rolling. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. Or the astronomical stuff. I want to be I want to be as concise as possible in terms of the astronomy here, because it is important. I know that me as a Western astrologer, I started off with Western astrology. I found out about Vedic astrology and said, damn, this whole time I thought I was a Scorpio when I was actually a Libra. Oh my God. So that completely changed my whole life as an astrologer, because I didn't understand the physics, the astrophysics of the astronomy. And then I eventually came into Neotropical, which says, oh, I still am a Scorpio. Sweet. I thought I was, because duh, I am. And yeah, so it was very important for me to, and I had to, as a person who was so addicted to astrology, I had to get to the bare bones astronomy of the tropics, of the ecliptic. I gotta really get the, because I'm more of an astrologer than an astronomer, as every astrologer tends to say. But it's very good to know the astrophysics of what it is you're talking about, so you're not just blabbering on about how you're a Libra when you're actually a Scorpio. And that's what we're going to get into in terms of Chinese astrology. Let's see where it takes us. The celestial connection of Ganzi. Ganzi being the stems and branches. In the old tradition, knowledge of the Ganzi is believed to have come directly from the heavens. Ganzi are intrinsically entwined with the stars that speckle the night sky, the sidereal zodiac. Sidereal meaning pertaining to the stars. Now, please allow us to briefly introduce the way ancient Chinese studied the sky before we move forward and discuss the celestial connection to Ganzi. Ancient Chinese astronomers divided the sky into 31 regions, 3 of which were regarded as the center of the sky, radiating around the polar star. The remaining 28 regions, think about the number 28 as a division of the sky. Sound familiar? The remaining 28 regions are distributed along Huangdao, which is called the Yellow Belt, which is the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the path of the sun on the celestial sphere as discernible from Earth's center. Where on Earth, the sun goes along the sky in the same place. It moves a bit north and south through the year, but it goes from the east to the west on the same belt. Each of these, each of these regions is dominated, so the regions is the 28 divisions of the sky. Each of these regions is dominated by one zhu along the ecliptic. Conceptually, zhu is similar to what we call a constellation in the Western world. So it's like these 28 constellations. The smallest zhu is made up of 2 stars, while the largest one contains 22 stars. But for me, it's not about the stars, it's about the divisions. The divisions of the sky. The signs are only signs, as we know. In the same way that they're basically saying that these 28 divisions are constellations. But the nature of the constellation comes from the direction and not from something in the star. For example, the sign of Scorpio is only meant to signify like the tropical coordinate where the sun might be, where you might get scorpionic tendencies. It doesn't come from the fact that when you look at the sky, ancient people saw a snake or a scorpion. Oh, look, you see the 2 pincers and you can see it. That's only supposed to, that was done back then through the imagination in order to quantify that slice of the sky, which would have scorpionic effects if you were born when the sun was there. The scorpionic effect comes from where the sun is in relation to the earth in a cycle, and that cycle is tropical, essentially in nature. The sidereal constellation was just a marker for us, right? That part of the sky has that effect. That happened 2,000 years ago when people codified that slice of the sky means that, and the sky has changed, has turned since then. But the tropical, the spring, you know, the setting of spring, summer, fall, you know, these energetic responses of the earth and its position around the sun have stayed the same, even though the sky has shifted. You guys have heard this whole story a million times, so I'm not going to try to go too much into Ayanamsha and these sorts of things. But I am trying to relate it in just enough of a way that we can find use for it and what I'm trying to say about the astronomy of Chinese astrology. In English, the 28 zhu through which the Chinese dissected the circle of the sky, these 28 zhu are commonly known as the 28, what's that word? Lunar mansions. That's right, folks. It's kind of like the nakshatras. And that was the whole, like, sound familiar? Me being all cryptic and cute, right? Given that the zhu, or the lunar mansions, mark the daily position of the moon during its monthly orbit around Earth, we find that the moon resides in a different lunar mansion each night. Now we're starting to see the guts of what cycles are moving that makes Chinese astrology what it is. So, the moon revolves around the Earth, just like the Earth revolves around the sun. The moon is in a different division of the sky along the ecliptic. Of these 28 divisions that the Chinese did, they divided the sky in that way, and the moon visits a different mansion each night. Similar to in the Vedic conception, where the moon was a husband, and each of the nakshatras, the lunar mansions, was a wife of that husband, that lucky fella that gets to go around all the different lunar mansions, right? Now, we can already see that there is an important derivation that tells us that there's two different things going on between the nakshatras and the Zyu, the lunar mansions, when we consider... I'll get there. When we consider that the Chinese derivation includes 28 lunar mansions, where the nakshatras, I guess they're technically 28. The nakshatras are still something that they're trying to figure out, believe it or not. I mean, like, they've got it very much figured out. If you look on Vic Dakara's lessons of astrology, which he gives, and they're so worth it, I highly recommend it to anybody who's into this esoteric stuff. I love him to pieces. He's a huge, dear person in my life. He led me to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He led me to the Vedas. He's led me to so much. But yeah, he talks a lot about the nakshatras in a great way in his nakshatra sutras class. It's brilliant. It's the best thing ever. So he talks a little bit about how the nakshatras kind of have 28 divisions as well, technically. And so far as I understand it, I've done his lessons, and so I don't want anybody to think that anything that I say is necessarily associated with those lessons. This is me coming off the top of my head. So far as I understand, there is 28 divisions of the sky in terms of the nakshatras, or at least that derivation can be made, but that 28th nakshatra is like squashed into the 27. Because the conception of the nakshatras is that there's 27 of them, and 27 divides by 3 9 times. 9, 18, 27. The nakshatras are a trinary phenomenon. It's very much about the 3 and the 9, and how the 3 and the 9 and 3 times 9 is 27. It's very much a triangle vibe, having to do with like the soul and all the things that the nakshatras have to do with. And the sidereal tropical astrology, zodiac, of course we know is pretty different from tropical astrology on the whole. It's just a whole, that is the sidereal zodiac, and it's its own thing. The Chinese Zhu they go by 28, and it's actually their thing. This is me trying to stipulate that Chinese astrology is not another interpretation of the nakshatras. It's not just another interpretation of tropical astrology or Western astrology. It's a whole different thing. My conception is that the Zü, the lunar mansions, are broken up into 28. And why is that? Because it has more to do with 7 times 4. 7, 14, 21, 28. Where the nakshatras are more of that triangle thing I was talking about, the Chinese lunar mansions are breaking up months. That's more of what they're interested in. And I think that Vedic astrology talks about this as well in their own way. But even what is talked about in Vedic astrology in terms of sun and moon cycles in relation to the week, just like how there's the lunar month or month takes about 28 days to go through and cycle through. Vis-a-vis, it takes about 27, 28 days for the moon to travel into a new sign. Because it made a whole circuit, and the place it meets the sun again in the new... Yeah, that's right. When the new moon happens, that's when the moon catches up to where the sun is on the ecliptic. Let's say we have a new moon in Scorpio. The sun is in Scorpio. The moon is in the same place on the ecliptic in Scorpio. And from there, one day, the moon literally travels to another of the 28 sections of the sky. A Zü, a lunar mansion. And technically a nakshatra too, but again, I think we're going to go from the nakshatras. Now we're talking about Zü, the lunar mansions of Chinese astrology. The sun, the moon progresses from its conjunction with the sun up one of 28 divisions in one day. Next day, it's 2 divisions up. Next day, it's 3. Next day, it's 4. Until 1 week from the new moon conjunction, where the sun and the moon were in the same place, 1 week from that, the moon will be at a cardinal point from the sun, which technically should be, in Scorpio, would be Aquarius, right? And that's usually how it works, with some degree of moving around. Astronomy is never going to perfectly fit our idea because it's just so liquid and moving, and it's better for us to have that attitude about it anyway. So, in a week, it's gone from Scorpio to the next cardinal point, which is Aquarius. From Aquarius, 14 days from the new moon, it's going to be opposite the sun in Taurus. And then, finally, 21 days after the new moon, it's at the 3rd quarter, and eventually it comes back. And usually when it comes back, the sun's been moving too, which means the new moon will have moved in that whole month. The new moon will typically happen again in the next sign, which is Sagittarius. It is the progression of the moon in these cycles of 28, of the 4 times 7. These are part of the cycles upon which Chinese astrology is based on. And so Chinese astrology and what it means to our energy field tends to be derived more from really like cycles and like astronumerology than anything that we might see astrophysically as the sun and the moon. That's a point that I should kind of unfold. I think for now it's good enough for me to have suggested that there's a connection, but yeah, so that the nakshatras, the 27 derivations of the sky in Vedic, are not the same as the 28 lunar mansions, the zoos of Chinese astrology, but of course the language of Chinese astrology really comes from a sidereal zodiac. That is true, and it's an important point to make. What gets confusing here is that those codified symbols, which we use in Chinese astrology, were codified 2700 BCE, which, to my understanding, was a long time ago. And it seems to me that the symbols of Chinese astrology, well, this is kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Let's keep the train of thought rolling. When we see a symbol of, for example, this is the symbol for Geng. Geng is yang metal. Okay? Yeah, nice. So we can kind of see it. This symbol right here, this comes from a star pattern, as we can see from this side. They don't look precisely exactly the same, but it's just like with astrology, you know? Like, does that look like a scorpion? I guess so. That is the symbol which the stem yang metal comes from. And that is a sidereal reference to a star called... The oracle script for Geng is related to the lunar mansion Shen, which is found in the western celestial realm. So, I think that what I'm trying to say here, I don't know what Master Zhongzhang Wu would think of what I'm trying to say here. That's why I think it's very important for all of us, if we want to get the bare bones of what Chinese astrology is all about, if we do declare it to be an important thing, I need to have people on my side who can verify where my intuition is headed here, as somebody who got bonked by the problems with tropical versus sidereal astrology. I don't think that the Chinese even have a conception of this fact. But from my experience, Chinese astrology has not failed in its conception of the energies that I see played out. And neither has it for masters like Zhongzhang Wu or Master Sai, who's a thing I'm going to be talking about. And in my personal experience, I can see Chinese astrology working out. So what's the big question mark that I'm getting at here? Why am I even bringing this up? It is my conception that, for example, a yang stem like Gang, which is yang metal. This relates to a celestial region which was once westward in the sky. I wish I was I don't have a telescope or nothing. I wish I could see if Gang has moved the way I think it has. It would be, I think that the sidereal zodiac moves counterclockwise. In any case, I would like to know if the lunar mansion, which inspired the script for Gang, is still in the West, because that's where these symbols came from. The ancient Chinese shamans were very much into the nervous system and these cycles. And their whole shtick was grounded in shamanic directions. When I say shamanic, I mean like you've got a symbolic conception for something, for an energy that is pulling you in a direction, and that direction has sublime meaning to the cycles of energy. For example, if you know in Chinese medicine, each of the 5 elements relates to a direction on the body. Earth is the center. Wood is left of the body, cosmic east. Because very much in the Chinese conception, east just depends on where you are. South is the front of the body. West is the right of the body. And north is the back of the body. And so for the Chinese, when the Yellow Emperor, might as well get that name right, just so that we have a little bit of context here, because I would love for anybody who's actually into Chinese astrology to see what I'm talking about right now and say either, yeah, you totally got it, or no, this is absolute bullshit. That would help me a lot. I believe that during the time of Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, Huangdi instructed his minister, Da Rao, to look out at the sky, and they were into the shamanism. They wanted to conscript, if they wanted to know about the way of heaven and the cycling of the stars and of these circulating rhythms, they had to have some kind of sidereal basis for what they were trying to do. So, Da Rao, his shamanic minister, said, okay, well, we need a symbol for the yang metal stem. Well, China's here on the planet, and so that's where we are. China is us. We are facing south, and our back is north. So when we look in the sky, we will see a signet, a constellation, a lieu, or a zieu rather, a lunar mansion, for the energy that we feel is that way. And we shall call it whatever the star is for south. And when we look to the west of China, we look over on the right, and we will see in the sky the symbol for the star constellation called Shen. Shen also happens to be the name of the monkey. So even the branches come from this sidereal thing. Now, this codified system happened 2700 BCE, according to the history that I'm involving myself with. I don't know whether Master Zhongzheng Wu knows, or whether it really matters, that the star which they codified metal, yang metal through, that star is shifted. And it doesn't really matter where it is. Because so this is what I'm trying to get at. As I said at the start of this little lesson, the heaven stems and the earthly branches existed in the ether before they were codified. So, where at the time Dao Rao looked over and saw metal, the star symbol for metal in the West, he called that Western because that was the star symbol at the time that was there. Note that the Chinese, this is a big important point that's part of my whole shtick that I'm saying here. The Chinese tend to go by their nervous systems. They're very material people. It's not to say they're not spiritual, because the material is contained in the spiritual. But I believe that if they are ruled by the nervous system, or if their gene code, their cultural flow vibes to the Mercury vibe, as we said at the start, according to Ernst Wilhelm, then maybe it makes sense at the moment for Dao Rao to have looked out and said, well, we need some kind of starter, some kind of starting point for what we're quantifying this energy through. So let's call that point, let's make the symbol, because they were codifying symbols. Their symbols come from felt things. Like, whereas in our alphabet is completely different. You know, when you look at this isn't made... No, there we go. This isn't made of alphabetical vowels to make the thing, right? In fact, you know, when we have a word, like even the word like gang, G-E-N-G, that is a sound which we have codified through Roman alpha numerals. It's very possible that the word gang was there before Dao Rao even pitted it to some point in the stars. Because that's how they roll, the Chinese. They feel the shamanic energy. They feel in themselves, I know where south is, it's ahead of me. I know where west is, it's to the right of me. And even in the heaven stem calendrical conceptions, you know, like they figured this stuff out by observation, probably, in the same way that, I mean, the Vedic tropical seers, like Parashara, just had it. Which is kind of like, it's frustrating for astrologers, because behavioral psychologists who are astrologers want to have a science for how astrology got figured out. So how, in my conception, it would work, over thousands of years, sages noticed that people who are born in Scorpio have these certain tendencies. If you observe that over and over and over, eventually people are going to see, you know, that's connected to that point of the sky. And it's a thing, it's a cyclical thing that always happens. So it's a behavioral science that piled itself and congealed itself. And so we can imagine that the Chinese astrology would be the same thing. The shamans would notice that every month in the month of, if someone is born in the month of the boar, right? You see that they're born that month, and they have certain characteristics with having the boar as your commander. So what you do is you see that the people act like the boar when they're born in that particular time every year. It keeps on piling itself until eventually the sages say, we've seen 1,000 people in our markings and in our writings. They were born after November 8th, which means that they embody the archetype of the boar. After enough time, it's like a behavioral science that says that is there. It's an archetype that exists outside of our codified language. And it was there before they codified it. Now, Dao Rao and Huang Di needed to find something to codify it to, so they just used what was right in front of them, which is the sidereal zodiac of the time, a certain star that says this, and then this certain star says this. The sidereal zodiac has changed since then, but the Chinese still use the same symbols that they made at the time to describe the energies. They got it from a star that was relevant at the time. And so this symbol has the character of the star pattern that it comes from. But to me, the symbol is only a symbol for what the actual energy is. And the actual energy is its own twisting, like a tropical sort of vibe. It's like an astronumerological continuance, as I said. Or, it has to do with the cycling of the moon against the sun in these certain cycles. So, while the Chinese used, again, they're all about the nervous system. They're very much about ancestral lineage. This is what my father did. I'm going to use my father's stuff because I might as well. He's been doing this thing. He's not going to do anything with it, so I'm going to continue the lineage that my father used. Chinese astrology today is built on, just like the language, like a lot of the symbols, as we're going to see in the example of the number 5, Wu, the character Wu, that actually comes from something more grounded in human experience, and it's less sidereal. The number 5 is called Wu, and it comes from, you guys will see it soon. It comes from an intersection. It looks like, I'm just going to show you guys real quickly just so you see where I'm at. If my computer will stop freezing. Why? Damn you. Yeah, making it work. Okay, so Wu is the X. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So this comes from something that's in their experience, and Xing as well. I guess Xing was the one I was thinking of, but it's an intersection. But in any case, gonna try to hold it down here, folks. While the characters came from the stars at a time that is now changed, thousands of years later in the Shang dynasty, they said, let's just keep using the same symbols we've always used. It doesn't matter that the star is changing. The energies still mean the same thing. And So I was getting at the sidereal roots for the characters. But the nature of the astrological science of Chinese astrology, it's tropical. It has to do with turning dials that are not sidereal. And so that's the point, is that even though the symbols we use to describe Chinese astrology come from outdated star positions, we're still going to use those same symbols in the way they originally meant to talk about the energy of Chinese astrology, because that's how they do it. That's how Master Zhongxing Wu does it. They've been doing it for so long that they don't feel the need to change it. Now, I'm going to leave it to you. I would love to keep going on this point and to consider the conjecture of what it means, because I don't want people to think that it's not like sidereal astrology. The sidereal astrologers say this point, because tropical astrology doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the sidereal zodiac, aside from the nakshatras, which is a whole other energy field. It's almost like there's 3 energy fields that you got to deal with as an astrologer. The nakshatras, which is a sidereal zodiac phenomenon, where you actually have to know where the moon is and all your other planets are in the galaxy, in the stars. Sidereal zodiac, which is the nakshatras. The tropical rashis, the tropical zodiac, which is not about the stars, but the relationship of the cycles between the Earth, the moon, and their revolutions around the sun, and also the revolutions of all the other planets around the sun. In a cycle, has more to do with the seasons and cycles of the planets going around the sun than it does about the sun being at coordinate XYZ facing Sirius 9 in the galaxy. And the third is Chinese astrology. And Chinese astrology is not sidereal. It's more tropical, although it's kind of, in my experience, it seems more like a numerology game than an astronomy game. Because you can't see it in a chart. Like when you see my chart that I showed you with all that stuff, those aren't planets and positions. Those are dials that are turned to a certain point. So, my point is that it's not, the Chinese astrology is not like the sidereal zodiac, where, in my opinion, and this might cause some fluff, and I want to be careful with it, because this is a debate that's been going on, and the sidereal astrologers who have a Rashi system based on the stars, meaning that, for example, Aries starts at Ashvini nakshatra, which most people tend to think. So if I got that right, yeah. That changes the position of the planets, and that actually is a measurement issue. That's the science. According to the science of astronomy, you know, the tropical people say the sun is here, and the sidereal people say the sun is here. Who's really right? We got to figure it out, because it's a science. And one of them is wrong. It's a frustrating fact. Yes. It's not that they're not both right. And so it's a frustrating thing to deal with. But a Chinese astrology is not sidereal. It doesn't even need to deal with an ayanamsha, because it's more astronumerology based, having to do with the number of times the moon has gone around the sun in its own little cycles. And so therefore, the changed conception of the original symbols for Chinese astrology does not affect, in my conception and experience, so far as I can see, Chinese astrology still, well, it stands on its own 2 feet, and it is not affected by the changing sidereal issue, because the only seed of sidereal influence in Chinese astrology is purely on the symbols we use to communicate the energies. And the symbols can keep their meaning because they're symbols, you know? They still mean the same thing. The example I would take is that if in astrology, it's not a good example, because if you took the symbol for Aries, it's the name Aries. It means a ram. So it has the implication of ramness, just like Scorpio has the implication of a scorpion. But if you just take away the meaning of them and call them by astronumerology, Aries is a 1 and Scorpio is an 8. You can call them whatever they want, but the energy is the same. And in Chinese astrology, it's the same thing. Jia, as yang wood, it's just an arbitrary sound figment that came from a star, and at the time, it might relate to wood, you know? It might relate to eastness at the time that it was conceived. But essentially, what's most important for our practical purposes is that Jia represents 1, the astronumerological function of the number 1 in the stems. The monkey, which was originally Shen, it's called Shen, which comes from that western star when Dao Rao conceived them. Monkeyness is the 9th sign in Taoist astrology. Shen, the monkey, still, you can call it whatever you want. Call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for dinner, you know? You can call Shen what you want, and it will have the qualities of the monkey. The energy has the qualities of the monkey. Monkeyness is a function of the 9th number in the Chinese Jiazi, the stem and branch system. So you can call it whatever you want. The symbol is interchangeable, but the energy is what it is. And the energy is still expressed practically through the science of Chinese astrology, as we're going to see. Hopefully I haven't wooled this up too bad. I've really wanted to talk about this a lot, and I hope that I haven't overdone it. We're going to find out. I'm going to go through this whole video, and I'm going to digest it, and as I said, I might even make another one if I have to. We're going to keep hacking at the bit until we're happy with this scientific discussion that I'm trying to make. But I would love for anybody else to say, to talk about it with me. You know, the symbol is a part of it. You know, we'll talk about it. I would really love to be open to all criticisms regarding everything I've just said. And I think in the end, the only way that I'm going to be able, gosh, I hate to put it this way, but just like all astrologers, every astrologer knows, like, in the end, if you're trying to explain astrology rationally to somebody, it just comes down to like, It's a behavioral science. It works in my experience. You got to try it on to really see it work out. And any atomic materialist is going to go, right. Like Reiki, right? You got to believe the energy's flowing through you. I'm into Reiki, and I not as much as a Reiki person might, but a Reiki person trying to describe it to somebody, what else do you say? You've got metaphysical energy that comes through your body, and you have to be aware of it. Okay, hippie man, geez, put the energy through me already, you know? Like, wow. It's a hard thing to describe, astrology and metaphysics, to anybody. We're working on it. We're getting closer to it all the time. I think behavioral science and analysis is going to be a particularly important part of grounding scientifically the fact that astrology is a thing that works. In the end, for now, it is up to the people who have faith in the symbols, who are willing to be scientific in a different way, metaphysical scientific, which means having a hypothesis and trying it on and massaging it until it seems like it might actually work. Whether that's science or not, I would call it more of a metaphysical science way, an intuitive way. That's how astrology is always quantified, or that's how astrologers have to deal with it scientifically, rationally. And I contend and assert that it's going to be the same way for me trying to describe Chinese astrology to Western astrologers. It works. Try it. You'll have to try it for yourself to really see it work out. And the only way for us to try it is for us to, that's why I'm putting it all out here. My interest is to put, our next session is going to be me talking about actually calculating the Ba-Zi, which is the Chinese astrology chart. And you're going to see the whole thing laid out there. Hopefully, people will take to the science. You got to read Dr. Karen Taylor Wu's book on it, because it's the only one out there that exists right now about the science. Get it, see the symbols, try it on, and see if you like it. Anyway, so you guys see where I'm at. It's the only way we're going to do it is by doing it and trying it. Let's see if it works together. And I believe that it does work despite all this fancy conjecture about the sidereal symbols that I've talked about. I'm just going to take a peek to see if there's anything I might have missed here. Okay, so we're looking mostly pretty good. So, that was a good little bit of history for anybody who might still be watching. Thank you if you are watching. I hope you guys are having as much fun with this as I am. We're now like more than 2 hours in. We're about 2 hours in since I started at 4:15. And I was going to try to aim this at 2 hours. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I think that there are still things that I could say for this first little intro video. I'm going to try to make it a bit meatier in terms of like less history and less like scientific or theory and astronomical theory. I'm going to try to start to bring it more to the person who is less interested. Like, okay, I get it. Chinese astrology works. So how does it work? Let's do it. After I go to the bathroom. I'll be right back, you guys, and we're going to get a little bit more into this. I'm going to take, like, if you guys want to think of a question for a moment while I go to the bathroom, do your thing. We're going to go, I'm going to do that, and then we're going to do that. I'll be back. Sorry about that, folks. When the boar's gotta go, the boar's gotta go. Okay, so thank you all so much for being a part of this with me. We're still gonna keep going for a little while. I'm just gonna take a quick peek to see if anybody has any relevant questions. Cool. So it looks like my buddies upstairs are making some interesting comments about I'm on here as Dustin Cormier saying some junk on my own show. I think my buddies upstairs are hacking on my account, or on the computer upstairs. Okay, cool. So it's looking like we're good right now. Whew. Feel free to ask any questions that you guys like. At some point, we're gonna, at the very end, we'll just try to have a big hash up in case anybody is here who is interested in anything that I'm talking about. Still pretty green on this YouTube thing, so we haven't collected too many viewers just yet. So we're going to continue with a little bit of history here, ladies and gentlemen, or less history, more theory now. We're finally getting into what it's about. What I did want to show is talking a little bit about the symbols which Chinese astrology is kind of predicated on. One of them being something called Wu Tsing. Wu Tsing means the 5 elements. Interestingly, as I said, the word Wu means the number 5 in Chinese astrology. But it's also, well, Wu, the modern Chinese character from the number 5, is derived from an oracle bone diagram, which shows 2 horizontal lines representing heaven above and earth below. Now let's just get a visual here. Here we go. So this is Wu. So we can see we've got a horizontal line and another horizontal line, and then the X, right? The X is the crossing between heaven on top and earth on the bottom. It's the root of the modern Chinese number 5, yin and yang intertwined between heaven and earth. So this is what the word Wu, when we hear Wu Tsing, it basically means the 5 elements. The 5 with wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So it's yin and yang energies dancing together, and also, according to a 2nd century Chinese dictionary, Wu means 10,000 things dancing together. So the Wu is kind of like, it's just like energy itself. It's kind of like almost like all the energies contained in one. And it's interesting that Wu is also the symbol for Earth, because Earth is considered to be a combination of all the other elements. They say Earth is in wood a little bit, it's in fire a little bit, it's in metal a little bit, and it's in water a little bit. So it's just a funny, cool sort of thing going on there. Earth and heaven are kind of like this one thing. You know, for the Chinese, heaven is less about this like linear thing going somewhere, and it's more about heaven coming down. The heaven implied in Earth being realized on Earth. So Wu Tsing is an important phrase because, like I said, it means these 5 elements. The word Xing, this is the bone script for what Xing was, and it means intersection, walk, action phase. It represents the dynamic interactions of the element phases and among the element phases. And this basically, when we think of Wu Tsing, I wish I had a picture of it in here. And I guess I'm going to have to work that out next time. Right now I'm just cycling through my book because I know that there's a picture of it. Ah, yeah, here we go. These are the kind of interactions that we're thinking about and talking about when we mention Wu Tsing. You guys, I'm sure anyone even remotely interested in Chinese astrology has probably seen these. This is the feeding cycle, where the elements feed each other and support each other, but also drain each other. And this is the controlling cycle. We can see that wood controls earth. Some of these are obvious. Water controls fire, which means water like puts out fire, but also can control it in positive ways. Metal on the bottom right interacts with wood on the top left and cuts wood, so that a wood person, when they involve themselves with metal, can be much more controlled, although sometimes so much controlled that they reduce their nature and they reduce their ability to be what they want to be. For example, usually you want to have it so that the day stem is kind of doing the controlling and is either supported. For example, I'm the water type. My water controls my day branch, which is good. My day stem controls my fire day branch. It'd be nice to have like a metal commander or something to support my water day stem. So anyway, thinking things. But this is Wu Tsing. This is the Wu is the element phases. I'm trying to just like give you guys some key symbolic consciousness items. The 5 element phases are not separate elements. Tropical astrology is more of a thing which describes like, you're a fire element on your sun, and that's one thing, that's one type which needs to, which is different from the other elements type thing. I mean, even the Panchatattvas, the Panchatattvas is very similar to this, as you'll see in Ernst Wilhelm's book. And the Panchatattvas is a more realistic conception of the energy and the whole. And that's how I should keep that. Astrology does run on this same logic, which is essentially that matter is in phases, and it goes through different phases and different cycles. We can see that like wood is a certain phase, fire is a certain phase. So because everything is one, that's what the Chinese astrology is kind of trying to say with this Wu Tsing thing. The Wu is like energy, it's like earth, it's like matter. And the Xing is the crossing, the dynamics between these bits of matter that are in a certain phase, and they're all trying to work together in a way that is harmonious. That's the big key word in Chinese astrology. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, okay, cool. That's the next thing. Okay, so just a quick thing here. Okay, so that I wanted to give a little bit of theory on what Wu Tsing was. In case anybody ever hears that term, which is a critical thing to Chinese astrology, Wu Tsing is the interactions of the 5 element phases. Now, that little bit of theory is going to be a big part of our next little bit of theory. So, Chinese astrology, I'm just digesting everything for just a moment here. Wow, we got quite a bit more to go here. Thinking about whether we should just leave it like this, or I'm just going to go for another hour. What the hell? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm having fun with this. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit actually about the dynamics of Chinese astrology. You know what? Instead of doing that, as I feel like I could, but I don't feel like I should keep going. We're 2 hours in. I think I wasted a bit of time at the start of this. At the very start. This is a good video. And I think that I might just want to cap it right here for now. I didn't know where my blabbering would take me. Now I totally get, like, when I see Vic DeCara, he's doing his thing, and he goes and he goes and he goes and he goes, oh, let me just check my time, let me see where I am, okay, we're doing good. I get it. I totally get it, Vic. I get it. So I think that I bit out a big chunk of something that I kind of am glad that I isolated. Now, next time we do a video, I'm going to refer back to this video. Yeah, I like this better. I'm going to refer back to this video that we just did as the bare bones. The bare bones descriptions of what Chinese astrology is all about. In terms of, like, astrotheologically or whatever, astronumerologically and astronomically, how it relates to tropical versus sidereal zodiac, where the symbols come from sidereally, as we know, and the fact that the symbols are still useful even though their sidereal basis has changed. The names that we use to name the energies are still useful because that's just the lineage that the Chinese... They could have used any word. They used what was there at the time, and if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. We talked about a little bit about the basic conception of a chart, being rooted in the commander, the month branch, the day stem, which is the self, and then the day branch, which is the partner. And those are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about more next time. I think it's suitable and makes sense that we got a lot of the theory out of the way. And next session, which I believe it's not going to be next Sunday. I tried to kind of work this out before we started doing this. I'm looking on my phone here so I can schedule when I think the next session we're going to be able to have. The reason is because I'm jamming with my band next Sunday. I'm trying to make this a weekly thing. We're going to try to get together here at this time. I'm thinking of doing it at 3 o'clock. Because then this way, if I do go over, we're not bleeding into people's supper time in my time zone. So I think that what I'm going to try to do, folks, is for our next session where we're going to actually get into it. I don't mean to tease you like that. Or do I? I think it'll be on the... Okay. August 19th. On the Sunday. If you guys are going to be there, I'm going to be there. We're going to shoot for 3 p.m. August 19th. Sunday, August 19th. For our next session. And that next session will be more about... It'll probably be a freestylish sort of thing, because I chunked out today a lot of dirt. The next one is going to be, as I said, we're going to actually get into the theory. Like I said, okay, we get it. Chinese astrology works. Well, how does it actually work? We're going to find out in our next session. And I think that the next session will be of a bit of a feel out. I think it's going to be a lot of a lot of me, you know, talking in this informal way about my experiences with Chinese astrology, my experience of my own chart as I understand it, and we are going to get into a bit of theory as regards what is it that makes an animal, a Chinese animal's characteristics. What are the hidden stems all about? Why is it that the sign of the dog, for example, is usually yang earth, even though if people see it, it's in the metal type, right? So people see it and they say, oh, dog must be a metal type. Really, energetically and practically speaking, dog is yang earth. It's actually an earth type. And it caters more, out of the 5 elements, it's more of an earth type than a metal type. And dog also contains fire. Why is that? There's a science behind it. In this particular case, it's because the dog is part of the fire triangle. Chinese books, like, for example, the Handbook of Chinese Astrology, calls that the fire triangle. Or, I'm sorry, calls it the air triangle. The reason is because dog relates to the month of Libra, of October. And so most westernized Chinese astrologers will say, oh, it's in the same triangle as Libra, so it must be the air triangle. So they say dog is part of the air triangle. The Chinese, and through Master Zhongzhang Wu's lineage, actually considers that Chinese astrology has its own triangles, right? So the dog is in the same triangle as the horse being the month of Gemini, right? Which is the air type. So horse and dog are contained in a triangle called the fire triangle. And when they get together, they make a fire energy. And that is why, when you look at the 3 hidden stems of the year of the dog, you see yang earth, which is its energetic body. You see metal, because it's in the metal type in the Western metal side. And it's fire, because it's part of the fire triangle. These are the kind of things that we're going to start chopping together in the next episode. And then after that, after the next episode, it'll be a bit more informal and just kind of us gluing everything that I didn't say in this session. Going to be gluing it all together. The 3rd session is going to be calculating the Ba-Z. Inspired by none other than, you guessed it, Dr. Karen Taylor Wu, who is, of course, as I said, the wife of Master Zhongzhang Wu. They're like the only ones that have it. This is it. You can buy it yourself. I recommend that you do. I'm not going to give you the whole thing. I kind of am, but it would be better for you to read the book because then you see the examples. But we are going to learn, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to learn how to calculate the Ba-Z chart, which is this wild thing that we've already seen. Yeah, you guys are going to see it. That big chart with all the animals, you know, my year, month, day, hour, Tianwan, Minggong, and then the Shen Sha, which is all the yogas of Chinese astrology. That's going to be our 3rd session. We're going to lay it out hard, and we're going to do the thing. And I'm going to show you guys how to do the whole thing. I don't know if it might turn out to be the same way, because there's quite a bit to it. But it's worth to go through it just to see it. I think the only way you'll really ever grasp what's going on with Chinese astrology is when you do your own chart and then see the yogas, the Shen Sha. When you see it all happening in your own chart, that's when it'll really click in how important Chinese astrology is to your self-realization and to your understanding of your own nervous system and your own energy field. That'll be our third session. Might take 1 or 2 sessions to do. And you guys will see me talking about it before we get there. So, and hopefully also, hopefully we'll be getting tighter, like I said, after every time we do these sessions. I think I was a bit nervous when I started, but now I'm feeling pretty good and pretty chill. And so I know that, like I said, I got a million things going on in my life, and I knew I would never do these if I just drill it in there, forget what everybody else has going on, and I'm going to conscript myself to trying to get this going weekly. And then I think I'll get tighter at it. And so, I might just do these, I might even just redo this whole video. I don't know. I'm going to watch it and see how good it turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you so much for coming and watching me, for gracing me with your presence as an audience, from my viewers who have been watching, to, oh shit, I've lost some viewers and I didn't even do questions. Like I said, I'm getting better at this, folks. I'm just going to take a quick peek to see if anyone's asked anything. Ah, darn. My friend, a viewer named Will Carter, was asking me some things, and he says, what do they use Chinese astrology for? I think I kind of answered that a little bit, but I think essentially Chinese astrology is more for luck. It's a materialism luck, and it does have luck cycles. It's got almost like dashas and transits that we see in Vedic astrology, but it's these cycles which interact with the nature that you were born with on the date that you were born. It's very similar to, it's an astrology, and realization of it can help you mostly business luck more than anything. Chinese astrology can help you know what your own nature is in business, and can also teach you how to interact better with others in a business way and in relationships based on the organic unfoldment of your own nervous system, based on the type of vibration that works best with your nervous system. I use the word nervous system a lot because as you'll see if you watch from the start of the video, I think the Chinese astrology bit has a lot to do with the nervous system. So hopefully that answers Will Carter's question a little bit. And I'll say hello to my friend Goosey. My friend Goosey always says hello to me on all my Howtorockcampfire and my astrology stuff, and it's nice to see you, Goosey. Thank you for watching and for putting a positive comment on my astrology. We got more to come, folks. We got lots of learning to do. I'll try not to blabber so much, but I don't know if maybe it's even a positive part of my shtick. I don't know if I want to be so cold that I don't get it all in. We'll find out, folks. I'm learning more about myself all the time. And I hope you guys have the same attitude, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoy being a part of the astrological community and to have people watching me talk about this stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments now and the comments afterwards. I would love to see any interaction that I can get with you guys, because this is kind of like a niche science that is newly happening. I'm excited to be the one that's like, no one else, so far as I could see, is really grounding this Chinese astrology thing the way I'm trying to. I would love for anybody else to be a part of it. Send me an email. Send me whatever you can to give me some constructive criticism about everything I've got going on here. I invite it because we're all in this thing together, trying to realize ourselves through ourselves. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll be seeing you soon. Thanks so much for watching.